Folks, welcome to an all new episode of So Bad It's Good. We have a returning guest. I've been on her podcast, The Curious Life, a couple of times and always have had a great conversation. She also is an author. Her book, Plot Twist, you can get right now. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm holding the book up, but I'll put it in the show notes as well. And she hails, she's not even in the US, folks, but she is a Bravo lover. Yeah, we're all over the place. But please welcome once again the one, the only, Jana Firestone. Welcome back.
Oh, thank you, Ryan. I'm so thrilled to be here. This is just, I think this is our fourth time now talking to each other,
Is
and
it?
I can't get enough. Can't get enough.
Now, obviously, everybody hears your accent. You're from Russia. And
Correct.
no.
Minsk, in fact.
Remind everybody of where you are located.
I'm in Melbourne, Australia, and I'm a big fan of all things Bravo. And if you heard me on Ryan's podcast last year, maybe, you would have heard my story of obsession, which probably mirrors everyone else who's listening. And that's why we're all here.
Well, I agree, but then I asked you a couple questions before we started, and I said, "What shows are you keeping up with?" And you're keeping up with quite a bit of the shows, but then I said, "Oh, and you watched the finale of Beverly Hills?" And you said, "No, I haven't." And I thought that was actually fascinating because it's not only the shows that we keep up with, but the shows that we don't. And I would be curious as to why you have fallen off the Beverly Hills wagon.
Yeah, it just, I started with good intentions and I was keeping up with the first few episodes. And then I don't know. It's like the drive and the pull just wasn't there. Like all the early Dorit scenes were great. I would love the smoking and all of the things that she was doing. But I don't know. I'm just a bit meh about it. Like I'm not like, okay, what am I going to watch? Mm, not
Well, I mean,
that.
do you do this with Beverly Hills in previous seasons, or is this the first season you've done this with Beverly Hills?
Good question. I actually dipped out. Sorry to borrow that heinous phrase from
Sandoval,
Tom
shout out.
Sandoval. I did. Once there was this sort of like, okay, the puppy gate and the
Yeah.
ousting of Lisa Vanderpump. That really is when it turned ugly for me. And I think I took a break after that. Then I came back in, and then the whole Lisa Rinna, I feel like she really pulled the show down and it just became so calculated. And it was a show literally about nothing. It was misrepresenting a small phrase that one person had said and turning that into an entire season. And it just became so boring and I just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, I mean that you make a good point in the sense of, we take one small piece of information, and sometimes if there's not enough dynamic stuff going on, that one small piece of information becomes a whole season. So it's hard to hang a whole season on something that is not worth its weight in gold. And the early stuff with Dorit, and especially the relationship between Dorit and Kyle, I was really fascinated with, and that got really left by the wayside, the side of the road. And then we started focusing on Sutton and Sutton, Dorit, and Erica. And you didn't watch the finale, but we did get the announcement just yesterday that Garcelle is going to be leaving. And Erica Jane and Bose, the new cast member, was on Watch What Happens Live. And I think Erica was kind of being all shady about Garcelle. But at the same time, I feel it's just, and maybe this is all reality TV, it just feels like a bunch of hypocrites because,
Mm.
Erica does not have any sort of leg to stand on, and yet she is still standing. And in some way, you're like, well, I mean, good for her for still standing, but you're like, girl, like, come on, girl, like, it's ridiculous. Like, you
Yeah.
paint yourself out to be the biggest victim of Tom Girardi, and that is just still not the case. And, she said something on Watch What Happens Live about revisionist history in regards to somebody else talking about their situation. And I'm like, you are the biggest proponent and person who thrives in revisionist
Yeah.
history because you truly still want apologies from these women about how you were treated during the Tom Girardi case. But at the same time, we still haven't gotten clear, understandable answers from Erica Jane. And I posit the theory of we can make this show good again if everybody, including Erica Jane, talks about what actually is going on in their lives and starts telling the truth about what's going on in their
Mm.
lives.
Yeah, and I think with Beverly Hills, they're almost the biggest culprits of living. or putting on this complete facade. It's like they just, the title itself, I think I've said this before, the title itself speaks volumes to the fakery that is this show. I
You
think
mean
maybe one,
the term real in there?
no, I mean Beverly Hills.
Oh,
Because
because I thought you meant real. Because I'm like, sometimes I feel like it should just be the Housewives of Beverly Hills because it doesn't seem like we're getting a lot of real these days. And you're
correct.
saying
Yeah.
Beverly Hills because half of these people don't even live in Beverly Hills.
That's right. And then we're not even talking like Beverly Hills adjacent. The majority of them live in the valley, do they not?
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just go with the Real Housewives of Los Angeles.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, that maybe that would get you back as a viewer potentially.
That might
Would
get
that-
me back in. Then we're bringing in an element of real again because we're not pretending that we're these shishy Beverly Hills darling people. We're not. We might be
Yeah.
wealthy people, but we're in Encino and we've seen you move there. Like, I just don't know why. So that's already the first thing. It's like that's fake. That's not real. And then the living beyond the means, which we know is happening and that has been talked about for years with Dorit and Erica Jane and, all of them and the whole Kyle of it all, not wanting to share anything. We had a few moments of vulnerability, but the vulnerable moments with Kyle were not actually what she was saying. It was actually in the things that she wasn't saying, like in the sit down with Mo, we would be reading her face.
It's
And
all
like,
subtext.
yes. So what is she really
So
sharing?
you think the audience is having to do too much heavy lifting for this show? Because I mean, like I keep saying, like this shouldn't be flipping Severance. Like this shouldn't
Yeah.
be a big mystery. Like
Yeah.
This is a reality show. You can just tell us how you feel. We shouldn't have to be like it's not like Lost. There's not
Yes.
some, I kind of want the answers, and also you do not have to keep the answers from us. You can just tell
Yeah.
us the answers, and that's sometimes the frustration I have with Beverly Hills. And I think also my frustration is, when you wear what is like the heaviness of the crown, or what is that saying that
Yes.
Lisa Vanderpump used to say? We expect more from Beverly Hills. It is like
Hmm.
the crown jewel or one of the crown jewels in the Housewives franchises. So you have a responsibility to bring it, and I feel like it not frightens me. I'm a grown man, for the love of God, but it scares me when you say you dipped out on it this season.
I know, but maybe it was because I had already had the experience of dipping out. So I haven't been
You knew
fully
you could do it.
committed. I
You
knew I
knew
could
you had
do
the
it.
strength to dip out.
Yeah. And I get it. I do a little bit of like spiteful dipping out. It's almost like they're going to know that I'm not watching. I'm not going to give you the ratings for my one view in Melbourne,
You
Australia.
will not get my Hey You. I watch on
Yes.
Hey You, and you will not get my Hey You viewing. No, I find that
Exactly.
interesting, and I mean, it's one of those things about being a fan of something is that you have good seasons and you have bad seasons, and I wouldn't even say this was like horrifically bad. It was just like, and I'm curious with
Yeah.
Garcelle leaving. I mean, maybe that's one. I don't think I don't want to call it a solution because I think we've got a lot more changes we need to make before that change makes sense at all. In fact, if anything, Garcelle was calling Kyle out and saying, "Why can't we talk about Morgan? Why
Yeah.
can we not talk about Morgan?" And I understand the delicacy of a conversation about sexuality, but I'm also not the person who chose to cash checks where you are sharing your real life.
Correct. And I think Andy is going to hold Kyle's feet to the fire a little bit, it looks like, in the reunion, which
yeah.
I'm pumped to watch that. Like that one, I will come straight. I don't even know
I'm
if
sorry,
I'll.
Jana. You cannot watch the reunion since you didn't watch. I'm so sorry.
I don't have the ticket. I'm banned.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I feel like, that will be interesting. But I agree. If you're not going to be honest about it, like if you think about what was so good about early days Beverly Hills, it was the Richard sisters dynamic. It was unfortunately Kim's serious battles with sobriety. And, that was fascinating. And then the layers of that family relationship and the dynamics that were slowly being revealed as the mask was slipping with Kyle, that is what brought us back every week. And then we had genuinely exceedingly wealthy people like Lisa Vanderpump and Adrian Malouf, whose marriage was falling apart in front of our eyes. There was so much real drama and
also,
real
they
relationships.
benefited from that being fresh in our eyes too.
True.
We
True.
didn't know any of those ladies, and I think over the course of a decade plus, you start building up bad habits, and that's why I
Mm,
keep and I God, not that she'll ever hear this, but I kind of keep campaigning for Kyle taking a year off. Is that I
yeah.
feel like you almost need to want to be on this show in some way, and
Mm,
she's really comfortable with being able to not talk about things, or like you say, the scenes with Mauricio, it's a lot of subtext and what's not being said. But this isn't like, this isn't French New Wave. I'm not like looking, this is not like cinema. I mean, it can
yeah.
be if we get it to that place, but
Yeah.
the audience shouldn't have to do all the heavy lifting. You speak about the wealth of those earlier seasons as well. Are you one of the people that you get really impressed to see rich women?
Not impressed. It's just, I think that's what makes the magic of the show because it is so other than, I'm certainly not walking around in mansions every day. That's not my friend group. And so I'm interested to see how these people live. And like you look at Kathy, she's probably got more money than all of them. And she's the most eccentric, quirky, like you said in your episode today or yesterday about her turning up in her basketball shorts and
Oh,
just like,
all the ladies were in full glam, and then
yeah,
she was like, "I'm just wearing this tonight," and then the next day she wasn't glam, so I was really confused of why and but then at the same time I was like, "Good for you! Like you almost
yeah,
stand out." And also I was so impressed, not impressed, that's the wrong word, but she has all of these. She brought like it looked like 100 pounds of like face products, and it looks like really high quality face products. But then she was eating like flaming hot Cheetos in the same room, and I was like, "Are
yeah.
you like?" She seems like super into health and like wellness and skin beauty, but at the same time, she's just such a
Yeah,
conundrum to me, and I can't
totally.
tell if it's a bit for comedy or if that's really her.
It's probably both. It probably is her and she knows it's funny, and she's probably also a little bit like I don't give a shit. Like she's not trying to get anywhere. She's there. She's
Well,
got
that's my favorite type of character, somebody
mm,
that doesn't need the show.
yeah.
And somebody asked me, why isn't Kathy a full time housewife? And I'm like, because she probably doesn't want to be. She's probably doing this
Yeah.
as a favor to Kyle. She's
Mhm.
probably like that to me. And so, to me, those are my favorite kind of cast members, the ones that don't need it,
Yeah.
because the rest of them, they kind of need it. And that also shows you how bad it has to be for Garcelle to like potentially willingly leave by herself.
Yeah, and you can feel how tightly the others are holding on to their position and their, manufactured version of themselves that they're presenting. Dorit and Erica and Sutton and like all of them are they're the reason probably they get so caught up on all these tiny little miscommunications or those one sentences that go on and on and on and on is because they are so desperate to maintain that facade and that position. And you just see Kathy is just like, I can relax watching her because she's just like breezing in and out, you
I
know?
mean, she legitimately said in the finale that she had to go change because she pissed herself. Like, I mean, she didn't say I
Well,
pissed
there you
myself, but
go.
she said like, and I was like, she tinkled, and I was like,
Yeah.
incredible. Like that's probably why you didn't
Yeah.
do glam. You felt you were going to tinkle yourself, so you were saving
Yeah.
yourself the
Why waste it?
trouble. I thought that was amazing. Like, and
Yeah.
also that to me, I was like, that's brave. That's called bravery, folks, and not enough people.
Totally.
Um, the other thing is, I said this since the beginning of this season. I said these all feel like coworkers. These feel like there's
Yeah.
not a lot of emotional investment. There's emotional
Yeah.
investment in the sense of they don't want to look bad in front of the audience, but I
Mhm.
truly don't believe Dorit gives a shit if Sutton likes her. I know Sutton dislikes Dorit, even though I think Sutton, if Dorit kissed her ass, would totally love Dorit. But it's all a bunch
Yes.
of people. Like, if we don't believe that these people at some point want to get along, I don't know. It's hard to make that investment in them. And if you compare it, I was thinking about this season of Real Housewives of Atlanta, which you are watching, where
Mm.
I think we have a lot of new people, but they're already connecting in ways that are so much better, in my opinion, than the ladies of Beverly Hills.
Completely agree. That is a fully formed show from the first 5 minutes. It's like bang.
It shouldn't be fully formed
No.
because most of them are new. I mean, most of
Yeah.
them are, and to me, I was like, they're I went in there and I guess it had low expectations, so it had that going for it in terms of like me watching. And I
Yeah.
was immediately kind of like, oh, I was leaning in. I was trying to learn the new people's names. I was like, oh, Kelly, okay, Angela, got it. Shamia, she's been there, but she's like has a new role. And for
Yeah.
some reason, it worked, and they were all willing to. I don't know. It felt like there were more stakes.
Yes, completely. And I think, can we just talk about Shamia for a second? Because has she always been this big, enormous performing personality? I don't like, she has come
I
out like the center. What do they
well,
hold in
the
Atlanta?
the center peach, yeah. They
Yeah,
don't. I mean,
Peach.
well, I mean, I think they gave her that role where they have not given her that role in the past. She's always been
Mm,
there. She's been the friend of Porsha or the friend of, and she's had moments, but uh, I unfortunately have not paid as close of attention to those moments. But here,
neither.
it makes me think of like, well, why didn't we do this sooner? Because she has the wealth. I mean,
Yeah.
her husband with the HVAC business, obviously huge. I'm going to get into HVAC eventually. We have that. We have like this really huge birthday party. We have the relationship with Portia, but she also has like a foundation when she talks about giving, birth to her
Yes.
daughter, and she didn't give birth, but it was a surrogacy, and the
Yeah.
complications with that surrogacy. And I thought, wow, this is such a brave kind of scene, something that I think
Yeah.
some people can really relate to. And I like, wow, she really has it all.
Yeah, completely. She has got every angle covered. And I don't say that meaning it's a strategy. I don't feel like she's coming in going, okay, so this is what I'm gonna bring. I think it really genuinely is what's happening in her life. And it is incredible that she's sharing those struggles about her little one, Shiloh, I think it is, who's got ongoing difficulties medically. But she's just like, I don't know who she is. It's like this reinvention. She was always like the fun friend on the side, it
Yeah.
felt like. But this is just huge. And she's got this huge CV of performing, like a whole career of acting and singing
No,
and
she's
all presenting. And
she's a triple threat. I mean, by the
yeah,
way,
like,
if Atlanta was smart, they would just form a girl group out of their cast members right now, because we have
yes.
Drew Sidora, who's working on an album being kind of produced by Dennis the Menace, and Dennis is Portia's ex. And I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
about this the other day because the third episode was good, but it wasn't like as good as the first two in my opinion. But I was
Mm.
thinking. Maybe Portia is so frustrated with Dennis vocally, like out like voicing her frustrations out loud and yelling at him directly, because she's not able to do that in her divorce proceedings with Simon, because she revealed
Mm.
this is very different than her first divorce. They don't talk at all. And so I feel like she's
Yes.
almost taking this out on a former boyfriend. Now, Dennis the Menace, it is super weird that he's going to be on the show still, but he's going to
Yeah.
be through Drew, and there's supposedly like brother sister vibes. Even though I want to point out, Kristen Doty and Jax Taylor also said they have brother and sister vibes, and we know what happened there. But I don't know.
Yes,
I
we
was thinking,
do.
I was like, yeah, of course Portia's like flipping out on Dennis. I mean, they share a
Yeah.
child, but also she's not able to vent her frustrations with the person she's going through a divorce with currently.
Yeah, that I think that's a great pickup, and she's already feeling betrayed in this divorce and this kind of revelation that Simon is just not who she thought he was.
Yeah,
And
but I mean, yes, yes, but also, come on, we all fucking
yes,
knew. I mean, like,
yeah, we all knew.
I just hate the obvious thing. It's like Teresa and Louis having tax troubles. Like, we
Oh,
all called it. Like, I
yeah,
hate that. Like, and we all tried to believe. We all tried to put the our best face a foot forward on this. But
yeah.
come on, like, I
I don't
know
know.
that's like what tax
It's
troubles.
nuts. It's nuts. Did we try to believe though, Ryan? I'm not sure I
I
was trying to
I
believe about
I know
Teresa and Louis
I
and
know I wanted to believe because I want the best for people, but it's
you're
just
nicer than
frustrating.
me.
Well, it's just frustrating when the obvious happens, and I'm like, of
Yeah.
course the Simon relationship didn't work out. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
poses as like a Nigerian prince, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, like it's so crazy.
I know. And it's really hard to take seriously too when Portia's like having that scene with her mum and she's like, he was always so protective of me. I'm like, always, when you're together for like 3 years, like we're not talking about this
A lifetime.
long Lisa and Todd, like what? Oh my God, he's not who he said he was. Like, I mean, there are things probably in my freezer that have been there longer than that relationship.
No, I mean that's it. That's why it is not shocking to me in the least, but it is interesting in how these ladies present themselves after it, where it's like, it
Yeah.
ain't no thing. And I'm like, it should be a thing. And,
Yeah.
you're like, are you putting your, the best face on for television? Or like, I also kind of want to see like the down moments, the moments where you're like, what the F did I do? What am I doing with the rest of my life? And she's putting on a pretty strong front.
Yeah, but again, there's a bit of like I'm getting hints of it, like in that conversation with her mum, you could see her like really just trying to keep it together. And it probably does explain why she wasn't responding to Drew in a timely fashion. Like she was just having all of this kind of come to light and all of this kind of public acknowledgement that her husband was a psycho. But also, the other part of it is, yeah. So I guess what I'm saying about Porsha is, I think we'll probably get there. And maybe when she's got her freaking frack, when she's got Phaedra back and she feels like there's someone safe. Because, like, who, apart from Shamia, who are her people
Well,
that she would
we
get
had that
vulnerable with?
lunch with Kenya, and I don't think Kenya is going to last. I think she only lasts a couple
No.
more episodes.
Yeah.
So but I'm down for a Drew Portia battle, but I just think Drew is not in a place emotionally where she can. To me, it's a little bit like Sutton and Erica Jane fighting. It's like it's not. Erica
Mm,
Jane can clear Sutton very easily, and I just think we all have these lots in life, and I don't think Sutton is an effective communicator slash fighter, and I don't think Drew. I think Drew is at her core very sensitive. I think she postures, but doesn't posture in an annoying way. Just postures in a I'm told I should believe in myself, and that's what I'm doing here. And I think Portia could clear Drew any day of the
yeah.
week. But also with Drew, what do you think it is of like she has Ralph, her soon to be ex husband, living in the basement? They have
Mm.
this really interesting agreement in terms of living there. But she is really close with Dennis because Dennis was like, I'm feeling your music. We can make something out of this. Do you think this is bad for Drew to trust somebody like Dennis?
100%. I think it was such a bad move. I don't know where that came from, that relationship. I suppose what Drew's saying is that they were sort of going on double dates and maybe they were all kind of friends with each other. So maybe it's not that weird. But why wouldn't you, if you can't get hold of Portia, why don't you send her a voice note or like, listen, I really need to talk with you. Dennis has
Before
been
the
in touch.
blogs get a hold of it.
Yes, and then if you've mentioned Dennis, she'll call you back in 5 seconds. She's not fobbing you off. She's fobbing you off because you're annoying, actually, and she just doesn't want to hang out with you. Like, tell her that it's really important. It's about her baby daddy, and you would have got a response. But yeah, I don't think it's boding well for Drew. I think already, as the girls have pointed out to her, she's the one that looks bad. You know,
Do you think Drew is hooking up with Dennis, or do you believe her that it is a business slash family relationship?
my gut feeling is she's going through the divorce and she's loving the attention. And she's got the male attention from someone who, positions himself as kind of like a big shot. He's got these music connections. I'm going to make your album,
Did you
you
did
know.
you see the other album he produced? It was like the kids,
Yes.
the kids album, like Kids
Yes,
Bops.
for
Like
PJ.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
amazing.
Totally. Like exactly. And that's the thing, like how delusional are you that just some guy comes along and swindles you because you're sort of friends with him into thinking like if my random friend just said to me all of a sudden, hey, I've been selling hot dogs for the last 15 years, but I'm actually going to make you a killer album and we're going to like take it all the way to the top. Like, am I going, yes, let's do that? Or am
Well,
I thinking, well, who else can I work with?
I'm so curious why you chose hot dogs as the profession. Do you have any friends that sell hot dogs?
Isn't that what he does? Isn't Dennis the hot dog king?
Yeah, no,
I think that's
no,
his
no.
real job. He's got a hot dog business.
But well, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it too with like the attention aspect of it.
Mm,
Of we've all like gotten out of relationships or and somebody believes in you at a time when you don't believe in yourself, and
yeah,
it is so easy to accept that attention because it
yeah,
feels good to have somebody say that you're talented and gas you up in that way. And you might not have a strong connection emotionally or physically to that person, but you're just coasting on that belief that they have in you. And I'm just curious. I mean, it then it it never is good though. That kind of choice, like
Mm,
when you just choose to like be around somebody that really believes in you and you don't really care for that person, it never ends well. But I think that's what's happening here because she needs it.
mm.
I feel like she is in some ways a broken person, and she's been,
Yes.
and I don't say I mean a little unfairly, but she's been picked on a lot on this show over the years. She's been made fun of a lot.
Yeah,
Talking with Drew,
yeah.
everything. She does it to
Yeah.
herself, kind of.
She does. There's just something about her that I can feel it. I can't put my finger on it. It's almost and I think I've used this term before with you, maybe in relation to someone else, but there's that sort of try hard element with her and she's always trying to get somewhere. And look, she had a, great TV career before coming onto the show. Like she was a legit person in the entertainment industry. So coming on this show I think has actually been not so good for her reputation and her standing. I don't know who would be taking her seriously after seeing what she's like on the show. And maybe we don't know everything. We got a hint when she met with her lawyer about all of the things she was actually going through in that
Yeah.
marriage to Ralph. And it sounds like it's been a nightmare. And she spent a lot of time covering for him. And we got that sense. I think when she first joined the show, she was having those counseling sessions with the pastor and they weren't really saying things. He disappeared to Miami for a few days and just didn't even like explain where he'd been.
Yeah.
And we just glossed over that. Like, I think it's been tough for her.
So you're saying like she's doing all of this reality show and like she's maybe Martin Scorsese is not going to hire her at this point.
I wouldn't have thought so. I mean, you
But
know who hired her though? Todd Candy's husband hired her, and
oh
she did that
yeah, they did
movie
the
for him.
movie. Yeah, I
But
forgot
again,
about that.
that's not Martin Scorsese.
Did you see that Candy Burris she's one of the producers on the new Othello on Broadway with
Yes,
Denzel Washington and Jake Gyllenhaal? And that's like
yes,
if you leave the show, and I think she chose to leave Atlanta, if you then like the next year produce Othello with Denzel Washington and Jake
yeah,
Gyllenhaal, my God, that's like a step up. That is like
totally.
good for you because like that's the perfect way to leave to something better, and that's why Garcelle. I hope she does get something kind of big just to show because I imagine how toxic it is with the Beverly Hills ladies.
Oh,
I don't know. Do you watch The White
shocking.
Lotus?
I'm only one episode in, so anytime you
Okay.
talk about it, I have to skip forward because
Well,
I
I'm just
just
talking
don't.
about like there's a group of three women that are old friends that have known each other
Yeah,
for 20 plus years. But you like they talk shit about each other when the other one's not there. And I imagine
yeah.
the Beverly Hills, like you just imagine the text exchanges between Lisa Rinna and Erica Jane right
Oh,
now in regards to
totally.
Garcelle. And that's where you're like the fact that they started this season with like it's so laughable that they started with Sisterhood. And I was wondering, do you
Hmm.
feel that any of these franchises contain a realistic sisterhood in any sense of the word?
The only franchise where I feel like that really applied is OG New York. I feel like they went through it, they tore each other to shreds, but at the heart of it, they truly were, and I'm talking about Sonia, Luann, Ramona, you know, they were all real friends, lifelong friends, Dorinda, and they got, caught up along the way, but it always came back to the love that they had for each other. And it continues to this day. They're still supporting each other. They're still, if we picked up cameras tomorrow, I guarantee you they will not have skipped a beat and it will feel real and genuine. And so the sisterhood sort of feels stronger there, but everywhere else it kind of feels, I don't know. Atlanta's got shades of it because there are those long-standing friendships, like Shamir and Porsha are friends from school, but there's a lot of performance and there's a lot of like camera time fighting.
Well, I would argue with, I mean, I agree with you about old school Roni, but I would argue that that is not ruined, but that is in a way so different now. If they do pick back up cameras, it would be funny, but at the same time, you would be talking about the Bravo celebrity of it all.
Yeah,
The celebrity kind of, or the Bravo celebrity of it all ruins the show eventually because
yeah,
then they're talking about was I invited to do this show? Was I invited to be on the
yes,
Traders? Was I invited? And it becomes then like, oh, did you see my TikTok about this? and it's not really about any sort of real life. I mean, it's real to them, but the audience, there's this kind of weird displacement because we're so used to those early seasons when they had these real relationships and they were catty and they were who they were the first 4 decades of their lives. And now we pick back up cameras. But now it is so influenced by the Bravo celebrity of it all that you really feel that. Like I've been around a couple of them in person, like Luann or Jill Zarin, and it is very funny to hear them speak about the other ladies, and you can tell there's a real
Mm.
relationship. But it's always peppered in with like, well, I'm doing this brand deal, and I've got these carpets, and I'm
Yeah,
performing at
yeah.
this festival, and it's not what you would imagine when you first started watching it 16 years ago, you know?
True, true. Yeah, I will pay that for sure. But then, if you think about other shows like Summer House, you've got this kind of girl gang that those bed bugs have had going for a while. And then you could argue, like, and I'm sure the gigglers out there, sorry, don't crucify me, but you could argue that they would see that as a true sisterhood and that those girls have each other's backs no matter what. And I could see that, but it's also come from this manufactured setting. They're not real lifelong friends like we saw with Roni. And I get that we can't do that anymore because of, we've lifted the veil and everybody knows what happens with reality TV and we've got to fast make friendships and turn it into something. But those girls seem to have that connection. But when I see things like, Paige and Lindsay starting to reconnect, I can't buy into it. I feel like Paige would still turn on Lindsay in a heartbeat. And she's been so cruel and horrible to her at every single reunion that has been since Paige has been on the show. So
Do you
I,
feel, but do you almost feel like with Paige, like in Paige's eyes, Lindsay has finally earned her respect. So there's a dropping of the defenses that Paige always had with Lindsay because she's like, fuck it, this lady threw down. Like, the Carl thing happened. She immediately got pregnant. She knew do you think there's like a weird respect that Paige has for Lindsay now, or you just don't buy it at all?
I actually don't. I think probably what was going on is Paige was starting to think about shit, I'm going to break up with Craig. This is not going.
So I should be
This
nice to
is,
Lindsay.
well, like, okay, Lindsay has just
She's
been through this
rallying the
very
troops.
public Bravo breakup and maybe she saw it in a different light. So she's looking at Lindsay in a different way, going, maybe I have some sympathy for her that wasn't there before because I'm gonna have to do this soon, and I just can now respect what she's been through. But I don't think she respects Lindsay. I don't think she would actually choose to be friends with Lindsay. I think she's always like a whisper away from actually, not going full Danielle, who is wolf in sheep's clothing and pretending to be Lindsay's friend, I think, to be on TV, but actually,
I don't agree with you on that. I think Danielle is like just saying like what I don't know. I don't know if I necessarily agree with the Danielle aspect of it. I understand what you're saying about Paige, and I know I'm in the minority with the Danielle, but but I'm just curious why Danielle's still on the show after they said she's not on the show anymore. She was in like the first 3 or 4 episodes. It felt like,
yeah.
and also to
I
your
feel like
point,
she's pushing herself onto it, surely. She's like, Lindsay, come on, I'll drive down with you.
I don't think you can just push yourself on that show. In fact, like I know that sometimes the reason we don't see a cast member for a weekend is because they don't book them for the week. Like
Ah,
so
okay,
that is
gotcha.
a little more strategic than I think it is painted out to be. But I what I love about Summer House is that I feel like they've skirted the issue that we were just talking about with Roni, where they've made those kind of like brand deals and the behind the curtain stuff part of the storyline. Like we have Spritzer Wars
Yeah.
with Kyle and Paige and Craig Conover, which really comes to a head in tonight's episode that is about to air. And we have the discussion finally between Craig and Kyle. And it's I don't know, for some reason I really dig that because it's talking about what's actually happening. It's coinciding, with kind of crosses over with Southern Charm a little bit. And it's not acting like this other stuff doesn't exist. It's become
Yeah.
storyline. And for me, that is done in, I don't know, for me, they've done that in the right way for me. Do you feel that way at all?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that is part of their real life, and so they're showing us what's happening in their real life, and they're doing that more authentically. I feel than they are like on Beverly Hills, for example. So I feel like they are doing it, yeah, in a way that just reads better.
Yeah. Well, now I try to quiz all women and men on this show. Where do you stand with Wes and Jesse, the two horniest guys that we've seen in a while on Bravo?
Um, I think they're
And by the way, you're
fabulous for
happily
the show.
married. You're yeah. I want to
Yeah.
say you're happily married. So you because sometimes Sophie will have a little bit of a crush on Jesse, and I don't think that's like a good. I don't think that's healthy. But where do
I
you stand?
know you've really got a thing for your. I know you've just been such a good friend to Sophie, but
I don't have a thing. I think this guy is legitimately dating. Now
yeah,
talk
but you're
about wolf in
protecting
sheep's clothing.
her.
It's a
You're
horny
protecting her from
wolf
a
in sheep's clothing.
hypothetical. Yeah.
Yeah, very bad hypothetical.
Yeah. So look, I think they're amazing for the show. Their energy's great. Their little like bromance is so cute and it's fun. I love watching Jesse getting into, like, I loved the beginning of him and Lexi. That was really exciting. But from the perspective of like I feel like I've been in my 20s and chasing boys, and like that's really, you just don't know what's, oh, you're going to go to a party and you're going to hook up, or is he going to text you, or like all of that. It speaks to all of that in all of us. But I think he sabotages himself completely. Like,
What
what's
do
the
you mean by
point
that?
of, well, he's telling Lexi one thing and behaving in one way with her, and every opportunity he gets, he's speaking to everyone else in the house like badly about her and making
Yes,
almost like it. But to me, it's
but
it's
I
not.
don't think that's sabotaging. I think he thinks he's being a pimp. I think he thinks he is being like I think he thinks he is being one of the suavest dudes out there. And I think he has all of these balls in the air and he doesn't seem stressed out about them, but he's playing every side. Like you said, he talks to
Mm,
other women and he kind of like puts out like, I think Lexi's like a little like too hardcore with me. It's like really soon. And then he'll be on the phone with Lexi and he'll be like, I miss you, baby. And I don't want to ruin tonight's
yeah.
episode for you, but that legitimately happens. And then all the while, he keeps hardcore flirting with Sierra because Lexi
Yes.
isn't there. And then you guys, you have potentially seen the episode by now. The very last scene, Emerald, which by the way, what do you think of Emerald?
I think he's good. I think he's good on the show. I saw him in the preview thinking like, oh God, some other like sex obsessed douchebag. But I actually really respect that he's like, this is me.
Yeah,
I've come
well,
away from a religious background and I'm like, I'm going for it. And
it's
I'm not
almost
going to
like
hurt
refreshing.
anyone.
It's almost refreshing for somebody to just be fully open about it because
Yeah,
that's it. Like Wes and Jesse, they just want like at the end of the day, they just want to see boobs and butts, and they don't know how
correct.
to say it. They don't know how to say it, so they say like "I love you" instead of "I want to see boobs and butts." And
Yeah.
Emerald is saying, "Hey, I want to get down. I want to have sex," and I think that is a little refreshing. Now, eventually, it could get creepy. Eventually, it could
Yeah.
be like, "Dude, we barely know you, and you've just had way too many." Like, it could be
Yeah.
uncomfortable for the people there. I would imagine.
Totally.
But
Totally.
what happens at the end of this one, he brings two girls back home, and then Jesse goes into the room and is like, "What's up?" And they're like, "Stay in here." And he's in the room, you guys, for like 38 minutes. And then he tells everybody, he was like, "Yeah, like, no, I was like, I'm with Lexi and all that. And like, I just, like, they just had me sit down and stuff. And I was like, and then Emerald said for the one girl to put my toes in her mouth, and like she did, and then he was like, she was like, oh, she just did it, like it was crazy, and I'd been like out and with my feet, like it was all day, it was gross, and then the
Oh,
producer's like, no, you actually took your socks off in the room, and the camera was covered up, but you see the little bottom part of the camera is like uncovered, and you see Jesse kicking his sock off in the room. But
amazing.
he's then out there the next day telling everyone nothing happened. No, no, I'm all for
Of
Lexi. It was
course.
crazy. But if somebody's having a threesome, first off, it's ballsy to walk into that room.
Who walks in? My
Who what?
God.
Jesse Solomon does. That's how
Seriously.
cocky this. He walks in, but then it's even ballsier to be like, nothing happened. But I also stayed in there 38 minutes. if I would give you 5 minutes, I'd be like 5 minutes, maybe if you happen to go in there, 5 minutes. It's
Even 5 minutes. I'm
That's a
sorry.
long,
If my
long time.
boyfriend walked into a threesome room for 5 minutes, let's be real, Ryan. 5 minutes is all it takes.
It's a, but 38 minutes. That
38
is epic.
minutes,
That's like the
epic.
Godfather of sex. That's like a
Yeah.
3 hour film. 38 minutes you can do with. So this guy, like, but then he's like playing it up like, oh, Lexi this, Lexi that. I'm telling you, this guy is destined for trouble. This is if
Yeah.
we invest in
Okay.
this guy, he's gonna give us a Scandival one day.
Okay. So I think I'm coming around. I think I was looking at it with a hopeful perspective because I did think
You
last
still
year he
can,
was. I thought last year he was so cute. Like there was something endearing about him
but
and his
isn't that how they get
story.
you?
Yes, of course it is. But I am the target demographic for the getting. You know, he got
Well,
me.
wait, and by the way, I'm not saying that I don't want him on the show. I
Yeah.
absolutely want him. I mean, he's such. And then West is out there pouting the whole episode because Sierra won't like bend over backwards for him, and so. To me, that kind of young energy and young stupidity, they think they're on top of the world. And in some ways they are. But in some ways, you're
Mm,
like, isn't this what women complain about at the end of the day? Isn't this the toxicity towards female relationships that we talk about? It doesn't mean that they're not good people to their friends and their family in their life, but in terms of what I hear women complain about, isn't this what it is right here?
yeah, it is. It absolutely is. And you wouldn't want it for any of your friends and you wouldn't want to go through it. We've all been there with a guy like Jesse. And yet
And
I
he is
want it on my
charming.
TV.
He is, yeah, no, I don't want
you
any.
know?
I don't want. Well, but then we see, and some people have complained about the age ranges in Summer House because
Yes,
it's
it's a
like
bit weird. It's
say,
creepy.
United Colors of Benetton ad just with age ranges, and now we're
Yes.
just. But I find it interesting because I always think it's like the ghost of Christmas past and Christmas future of like Kyle is like if Jesse and Wes had any kind of like super spirituality, they would be like, oh, we should really watch how Kyle is like that could be us one day, and we want to take notes from this and there's no kind of recognition of watching somebody that's a little past their age and like what life has taught them, or Carl Radke, or like
Mm.
this dude had to get fully sober and he's learning how to live life all over again.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're right. And do I think those guys are the future like patriarchs of Summer House? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure, but I think
That would
they
be
are
such a sad
integral.
episode if Kyle was made to like give like to knight
Waving him
them
off.
as the heads of Summer House. Like they
Yes.
have to put Kyle into a home. They're like, you
Yeah.
are no longer
Wheel him
welcome in the
out.
Summer House. And then they rule the Summer House like Game of Thrones.
Oh my God, it would be a disaster. But at the same time, I'm also really finding West being like so careful with Sierra. I'm finding that really annoying. I want to
It's
see
Kyle
him.
Richards level to me. Like, tell it like
Yes,
I don't, dude. Like, if you're gonna speak to the New York Times, speak to the cameras. Like,
correct.
dude,
Yeah.
I don't know who you think you're helping, and I don't feel like he's doing this for Sierra. I feel like he's doing this because he's scared of like the fans and how he's gonna be
Yeah,
perceived.
totally. He's rehabbing his image, except it's going completely the opposite way. He needs to take a leaf out of Imral's book and just be like, you know what? I had a couple of months on and off with Sierra, and unfortunately, it didn't. Maybe I didn't behave in the best way, and whatever. But I'm single, and let's move on. You
But
know?
isn't it weird that he did like Sierra even said last season of like, yeah, I'm not in a rush to sleep with people because like I want it to be intentional and I want that. And then it's
Yes.
funny, she did sleep with him and guess what? He was out. I mean, that's
Yes.
on its face how it appeared to be. So it
Yeah.
almost says like he hung in there until she slept with him. And at the end of the day, it didn't work out because at the end of the day, he didn't really love her personality, maybe. Like, and he just kind of
Yeah.
wanted to have sex with her. And once that happened, it fell by the wayside.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But also the other thing about them is there no bro code between Jesse and West? Like this flirtation that Jesse is throwing onto Sierra, it makes me so uncomfortable.
Well, he
Like,
plays Wes too with that. He's like, he tells Wes, he's like, bro, I'm friends with both of you guys, and I got to make this work.
mm,
So he's almost telling Wes that he's gonna rehab like Sierra with Wes.
yes.
But then when he's doing that, he's all flirty with Sierra while he's doing that. So it's like
Yeah.
super bizarre. It's like Jesse's playing West at the same time he's playing Sierra. And that, like, bro code is just something that we're taught. Like, it's a buzzword that I don't think truly exists because if you are, faced with this challenge of, like, would you hook up with your friend's ex? In terms of Jesse's always going to hook up with the friend's ex.
That's true. If anyone's going to, it's going to be Jesse,
Wait,
and he'll
what's
try and
girl
charm
code
his way.
considered? What's girl code
Well,
considered?
in our 20s, there was all of that going on for sure. We had like a big crew of friends, and everyone was kind of hooking up with each other at different times over the years. And, it was kind of the running joke that like everyone had a kind of fling relationship with each other over the years. We were school friends all the way and still are today. So we've all kind of got this checkered past with each other. That is
God, let's get a
not a
camera
big
on you and
deal.
your friend crew. Like, this sounds amazing for reality TV.
We
This
need
is what we're
Andy and a
doing.
camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm sure everyone in their, late teens, early 20s, we were all just kind of like newly adults and just having fun. But in our 30s, uh, if I was to hook up with a guy that my friend had been seeing, that would be absolutely not okay. And it would probably mean I would be on the outs with my friends. I can't imagine. The only way that I feel like there would be an exception is if A, there had been enough time passed that it was someone I hooked up with at 20 that my friend met at 35. Okay, fine,
Then
not a
it would
big
be okay.
deal,
Yeah.
but the summer before to now in your 30s, I'm not sure. And especially when it was such a big deal for Sierra, like she's come into the house still sweating about this relationship with West. And you can see that she's still got feelings for him. And she talked to Paige about that in the bedroom. Like, is it really bad that I also kind of like wanted to kiss him or whatever it was? So that's all still really
That was
big
a
and real
very
for
real.
her.
That was a very real moment when Sierra admitted
Yeah.
to Paige that she's still like, I would have made out with him at the same time. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn. But it just shows you like how we really, unfortunately, like we will hurt ourselves. Like we will continue to like make potentially poor decisions, or like actually, I love Sierra acknowledging the thought but not acting on the thought.
Yes. But I think given the right if Jesse was out of the way and maybe not giving her attention, we could have seen this evolve if she and West had been given the space to kind of flirt a little bit again and have a few more fun nights out. But she didn't need to give him that time and energy because Jesse was all over her. And, like yeah, I don't know. I think she probably would have ended up back there again.
Yeah.
But Jesse, I think, yeah, he's getting very messy. And then I'm thinking about, I saw was it a mid-season, can't be mid-season already, trailer for Summer House? And
There was a mid-season trailer released today.
right. And Carl saying he's got a crush on Sierra?
That was wild because
Wild.
Carl in tonight's episode, he is trying to like date this girl, this yoga girl,
Yeah.
and it's kind of very embarrassing. Not for, I mean, it's just it's a very cute storyline, but at the same time, she's very interesting to watch, and it's weird. Her parents show up at one point in tonight's episode, which
Oh
I
my
thought was
God.
bizarre. But yeah, Carl says, "I have a crush on you, Sierra," and I cannot wait to see Sierra's response to that.
Yeah. I mean, is it his awkwardness just totally misinterpreting any kind of attention that she's given him? Like where she's like, your hair looks good like that. You should wear it like that, not the way you've been doing it. And he's like, oh my God, she likes me. You know, like I don't know. Like, is he just so hungry for? But that's the thing. Like, he's not just some weird, awkward guy, which he is, but he's a Bravo celebrity who would have so much attention and so many DMs. This is not like happening in a silo somewhere where he's just getting a sniff of attention from a pretty girl. Like, he's getting that all day, every day. I mean, he met this yoga girl in his DMs.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, but it is interesting for somebody to, and I'm not patting Carl on the back, but at the same time, you really do get the sense that he is truly learning who he is and how uncomfortable that process of learning. And so doing that on camera, once again, I'm not giving him props or collecting a paycheck for doing this, but it is interesting to be like, God, those moments in our lives when we have to not start from scratch, but really go through an uncomfortable part of your life. Thank God we're not on camera for it because it looks like Carl.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other important piece to that is that, he started this sobriety journey really properly and intensely at the time when he and Lindsay got together. So it's like he's discovering what it is to be a sober person
Yeah.
independently and on his own. So we
Yeah.
have to give him a bit of grace there, I suppose.
Yeah,
But
because Lindsay has got what she wanted in terms of a child, and I don't mean that, and I mean truly, I think she
yeah,
wanted to be a mother, and this is seems like it's the beautiful experience she wanted it to be, and I don't mean with her relationship, but just the aspect of the child.
yeah,
So that to me is like okay, good, and you can tell Carl is relieved that she has that.
yeah,
Like
yeah. He's like,
phew, that's good. Like,
yeah.
moving on to Southern Charm, and I guess we can use the entrance point of Craig Conover, who
Hmm.
it's interesting how he is portrayed on Southern Charm as opposed to Summer House because tonight's episode and last week, it's almost like this guy that's, he's here again with me, Paige's boyfriend. And on Southern Charm,
Yeah.
he has a little bit more gravitas and respect. And I don't know if respect is the right word, but more people listen to him on Southern
Mm,
Charm. And what is your take on Southern Charm this season? Because we just had the announcement today that Leva is leaving Southern
yeah.
Charm. What do you think about that?
I've been thinking about it, and you have said some things that are similar to what I've been thinking. You're talking about it like we just need to, accept that it's about these three guys. And I've been thinking for the last few weeks that it really should just be called Southern Gentlemen, and that's
Yeah.
that's really what it is. And then all of these women have come and gone, but we're kind of, we've talked about this before too, Ryan, that the girls haven't really been given, I don't know whether it's the opportunity or the camera time to have fully fleshed out storylines. Madison, we've gotten close to with Brett and wanting to have a baby. Um, but really, those three guys are the main characters, and we just have to accept that. And it started off as Southern Gentlemen anyway. It was
Yeah.
Whitney and then we got the other, and Thomas Ravenel, and, we got these other rotating men, that JD Southern guy, who made the whiskey or whatever do you remember that guy?
Yeah,
And he and
yeah,
his wife
totally.
came on and
We
I'm
had
not
some
talking about
real
JT,
interesting
but
side characters.
JD.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
JD. I think it
but
was JD. Yeah.
JD. So, but then I think about like,
Little chunky.
yeah, little a businessman, always like
Yeah.
smoking a cigar and yeah.
God, I haven't thought
Uh,
about him in a minute.
Yeah, and he and Thomas were, old boys together, that sort of vibe. And then Shep and Austin and Craig were almost slightly B characters to those big old Southern men. And then they moved on, and it was the young guys' game. But like Taylor, for example, I feel like she's kind of got the Catherine vibes at the moment. She's kind of,
Because these guys kind of like rock their worlds in a weird way, and then they
yeah,
realize that they got in a way, and I think it rocks you. Like I mean, and I'm sure
yeah,
this happens to guys as well. We just see it on Bravo more, where it's like young women that then have this experience that rock them, so um, they're like shell shocked. It's an experience that you actively see like that. Taylor looks haunted at times.
totally, totally. And she can't help herself anytime, like that whole thing in the Bahamas when Shep was having his heart ripped out of his chest in front of everyone. She was smirking and giggling and she
But
was like
imagine having to be in.
moo-ha-haing.
But imagine having to be in that situation in the first place. Like I don't even think she
Yeah.
was like, "LOL, oh, this is like the best day of my life," because it's so awkward to have to be there in the first place. But also imagine how oblivious you have to be, or like to be Shep to actually do that in front of your ex.
I
Like that's not
know.
something you should pat him on the back for. That's like something weird and narcissistic of like not realizing your ex is there. And maybe I'll go cry and talk about this away from her because this is further damaging her and it's also embarrassing for me.
Yeah, but again, maybe it's like you're saying, they've got their contract and this is the like filming time they've got to show up for and they're just all doing their job. That's why Taylor was there. She was there to be on the show, not because she's actually friends with those people. I feel like what I mean about the Catherine vibes with her is that she's got that tragic element that came from the devastation of that relationship, but she's also not really being respected or cared for by the cast. The way that Catherine really, all of her relationships were ruined with the girls over the years. And occasionally she'd sort of come back and have an ally and then, not be turning up and not be turning up and not be turning up and being unreliable and all of the things. And so you could just feel there was a disdain for her. And I feel like Taylor's in that position now. I don't know that the girls genuinely really, I mean, she and Molly seem to connect. And then Molly's sitting there like talking to her about wanting to hook up with Shep.
It's so
Like
bizarre.
it's
But
so
but
bizarre.
once again, is this a sisterhood? Is this girl code? Is this like I'm so? And then do we at the end of the day really care when it's a show about these bros? Like it's this weird kind of like periphery characters. Like we're supposed to pay attention to this Vanita JT storyline, and I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, like this is how we're ending the season, and
Yeah.
I don't, you've got to give me more of a reason to care. Like I feel like it, yeah,
Yeah.
obviously you are feeling something, but I'm so cute and confused, and it's another one of those mysteries. But if it was
Yes.
Craig, Shep, or Austin, we would know way more about this, and we would potentially care way more about this.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like Vanita, I just could not keep up with the story. And yes, there's editing, but like what the hell was going on? I have no
So
idea.
confused still, and
So
then
confused.
yeah, and then I'll like look at something Craig and Paige are going through, and I'll pay attention to that more as
Yeah.
well
Yeah,
because
you're right. You're
JT
right.
also
And
left the show at one point.
yeah, and so I was actually watching JT for all of those signs of like, okay, is this the moment he's going to leave and why is he leaving and what's it all about? I still have really not got a good handle on that. But, those three main guys, we've also watched them over the years. Like we have seen the evolution of Craig from like this annoying, ADHD little brother on the side, of which I have one and I have a son, so I can say that in the ADHD world. But like I recognized him and he was just so annoying. And then, he had the whole Naomi
Yeah,
relationship and all of that horror that came down and the trying to pass the bar and lying that he passed the bar however many times. And there was so much we were invested in fine detail into his life. And now he's Martha Stewart, and that's great. And like that's where he wants to be in his beautiful garden, just like hosting and, showing flowers and pillows on Instagram. And I'm like, I'm here for it. Like he's calmed down.
I'm here for it, but I also think we never get too far away from ourselves, fortunately or unfortunately.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it keeps getting brought up on Summer House and Southern Charm that Craig is potentially still a liar. He
Yeah.
never really has admitted to any of these lies, even earlier in the seasons. And, maybe we don't need to be as harsh as calling them lies or just untruths, or maybe the way Craig sees things isn't the way
Yeah.
they actually happen. But yeah, I've always been one of those things where I see like, oh yeah, like yeah, you have this beautiful area that you want to hang in the backyard and your pool and not go out. To me, for Charleston, that is growth. Like
Yeah.
good on you. But then all the stuff with Paige is coming out and like all of this information is kind of getting doled out a little bit more. And even Paige suggests in the Summer House trailer for the midseason says, he said he bought me a ring, but I don't even know if that's a lie. That might be a lie as
Yeah.
well because I never saw the ring. And I'm like, would
Mm,
he lie about the ring? And but at the same time, I find Craig at times very charming. I've seen him grow up a lot, and I don't know what that says about me if I'm a sucker. But and by the way, but also I like Paige. I don't think Paige obviously wanted to be in that relationship. At the end of the day,
yeah.
that's just it.
Yeah. And that's what, well, I think that's what we're seeing on both the shows, Summer House and Southern Charm. We are seeing her struggle with the reality that this has got to end, or she's starting to get the ick. She's starting to get those feelings of like, oh no, this is not. He's starting to be annoying. I don't want to come here anymore. I don't want to do that. I want to do this.
What almost feels like she feels like he's too soft. Like maybe we
Yeah.
shouldn't call each other chicken so much all the time, and maybe
Yeah.
like it's starting to feel like she like wants. I don't know. Like he's weirdly not domineering, but she's trying to paint him out to be like it's always got to be Craig's way, it's always got to be this, it's always got to be that. But at the same time, it seems like he's soft a lot around her, and I don't think she likes that either. So I'm like,
Yeah.
which one is it all of this? Is there one more than the other?
Yeah, I think it's probably all of it. You know, when you just start to get turned off by somebody and then everything they do starts to be annoying and you're seeing them in a different light and they're just not who you were hoping they were going to be. And we're always our best selves at the beginning of a relationship, you know, and they were
Yeah,
probably turning on the absolute stars within themselves and loving being like a bravo much loved couple. Like that was such a novelty, especially because he was such a I don't know, an unlikable guy on Winter House. He was gross. And then there was this
yeah,
turnaround. And it was old Craig that we were seeing on Winter House. And we were all like, yeah, we know this guy, Paige.
yeah.
Like
He
it's
was
the
like,
guy.
yeah, I don't care about making a mess. Just I'll pitch a
Yeah.
couple $100. Like hire somebody to
Yeah.
clean it up. I
Yeah.
love that. Well, as we start winding down here, we did you watch the first season of The Valley?
Of course.
So the second season comes out April 15th, and we have a lot of information. You know, Jax has already done a pre-interview about his substance abuse and all of this stuff.
Mhm.
Like, what are you looking forward to in the Valley?
I think it's the little things that I've forgotten about because the Jackson Brittany is just always going to be entertaining because Jax, no matter what we think of him, is just like great TV because you just never know
Yeah,
how low he's going to go and he'll always go low. So that'll be great. I think, you know, all of the other relationships, like Nia and Danny, I think as a person with three children myself, not three under three, but, you know, I feel that fatigue and stress and chaos that is for sure in their lives. And I'm really worried about things coming out about Danny. I just want him
I
to
know.
be
In the trailer, they said
amazing.
he grabs ass when he's drunk or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I
Well,
don't
and then
want that to
she's
happen.
pregnant again with their fourth right now, and
Yes.
that's a lot. I mean,
It
like
is a
one kid is a
lot.
lot, two kids is a lot. I mean, like that's wild. And
Yeah.
I was really shocked because also in Los Angeles, that's a very specific environment to raise kids in the first place, and then to be part of a show like this where your demons do get pulled out. That's used for
Yeah.
content.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are they doing to their family? That we know what these shows do to families. Even seemingly the strongest couples take a lot of hits from these shows. And I think there's probably a lot of intentional mischief from the cast trying to do this and make a great show. And do you want to expose yourself to that? Like, they've had the fame. Could they not do like I don't know, they could have a really wholesome spin-off, just their family and, you know, the chaos of them. I could see that.
No. I mean, take that to TLC.
Yeah,
We don't need
exactly.
that on Bravo.
Exactly. Well,
But
they're
I
on the
mean,
way with the kid count, you know, they've just got to
yeah. I mean,
double it
my
and
God. Yeah.
they'll be
Yeah.
yeah.
They're halfway to a TLC show at this point.
Exactly.
Where are you
Exactly.
at with like Janet and Dodie? Because that is another
Yeah.
relationship that it was at odds last season.
Yeah, like I thought Kristen got such a rough deal last year. I did think Janet was sniping from the sides and probably deserved as much heat as she was getting. So I'm hoping there'll be a bit of a
But how much of
uh,
that is Janet, and how much of that is extreme pregnancy?
well, look, I've been pregnant 3 times. I don't think I ever behaved like that ever
That's what
once,
we need
you
to
know.
be in a camera.
And
That's
yeah,
why she's
we
saying it. We don't know.
you'll never know.
Yeah.
Only my family suffers the abuse that comes out of me when I that's it. No one else. But you know, I don't know. It felt like an excuse from the things that I've read online, and I know that you've met her and know her a little bit, so maybe you can speak to this or maybe not. But I feel like that she's a messy kind of person, and she likes to get involved. I mean, she's friends with
I think
Sheena.
she knows where the bodies are buried. Like that's what
Yeah,
because I was going to ask you what you think about Sheena and Lala in some capacity on the Valley, but also if you're going to have Sheena on there, like I would love to explore the Sheena Janet relationship a little bit more. Like, like the stuff that they know about each other, like I find if we're going to have that, then we might as well take advantage of actual relationships because Janet and Sheena have known each other for a long time. Janet was like a
Mm,
regular, it still is like a co-host on her podcast. I think there is a lot of stuff that, if they're going to be there, why, I do appreciate that Janet does have relationships with everybody on there and knows so much about
yeah.
everybody. So that's a very love her or don't love her. That's a very it's a certain archetype of character that I think is very interesting on reality TV if you lean into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear what you're saying and I'm trying to have an open mind to it, but every cell in my body is like screaming and clenching and cringing because I just don't want any more Sheena on my TV. I just find her like so. I find her like I honestly find her disingenuous. I find it really hard to watch her because she is such a flip flopper, and whoever's in front of her, I think she, if you breathe a warm breath in her direction, she'll like fall into you, and she wants to be friends with everyone, and she wants to be liked by everyone, and maybe it was Sheena I was talking about last time that has that kind of Drew Sidora try hard vibe. Like I find it really annoying. It
But that's
completely different to
but that's
Lala.
been Sheena from the jump.
I
That's been Sheena
know.
episode 1, season 1 of
Yeah.
Vanderpump.
And I
See, for
don't
some
love
reason, like
it.
to me, I'm like, well, she's always been who she is, and there is this. I don't know. It becomes more of I don't know. It's different because Sheena and Lala, two very different people, and the way they come at things to are like. And I'm always going to pick Sheena over a character type like Lala. Like for
Yes.
me, for me personally, that's I'm always going to steer towards the Sheenas
Yeah.
than the Lalas, or even with Drew Sidora. There's a part of me that will always empathize with Drew Sidora, even when she does it to herself, because I see a little, like I don't know, I don't know what that obviously says something about me, but Lala to me is as a character so performative that you
Yes.
are immediately reminded that you are watching television.
Oh, completely. I absolutely don't want her on the show. I thought the Valley was so good. And I feel like she tanked Vanderpump last season and was kind of working towards that over the last couple of seasons. And I just don't want her poisoning the well. And I don't think we need her at all. Like there's
Well,
enough drama.
it's that one thing that Lala said, was it at the reunion when it's like, you don't have to care about your paycheck, but you better care about mine. It's like, I don't
Yeah,
want to be talking about paychecks. Like, take
exactly.
care of your own paycheck. Do not make
Yeah,
the audience aware that you are getting a really good paycheck for this. Like, you care
exactly.
about your own paycheck. Like, it's not
Yes.
Ariana's. She does not have to be concerned with your paycheck. You be concerned with your paycheck.
Yep. And, I also then am like dreading the rounds and rounds of podcasts and Amazon lives, like, talking behind the scenes about
Well, and
the
by the way, that's
four
it's
episodes she
gonna
was
help her
in.
podcast. It'll help
Yeah.
like because this is like content for all the other content, and so
Yeah.
it puts her into some like little mini spotlight again. And it's really what you do with that spotlight, but it's kind of like a vicious cycle because then like next year you got to beg to be on the traders, you got to beg to be on this, and I'm like, where does this
Yeah.
all end? Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like that's why I'm like, just I would love the people that are like, I'm going back to college. I'm going to go get my master's.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Like that. Yeah. That's the only thing that I'm feeling resistant about the Valley about, which is Lala and Sheena. Because if you want to have messy characters, or, you've got Zach, who also knows where all the bodies are buried, and he's not afraid to kind of jump in, and he's like thirsty, and like we want all that. We want that. But
Yeah.
he works on the show, and he was a great supporter of Kristen, and Kristen needed that. And I don't know. I just feel
Wait,
like there
Zach
was
wasn't a
so.
supporter of. Oh, Zach. Sorry, Zach was a supporter of. I'm sorry, I was confusing Kristen and Janet for a second. Yeah, Zach
Oh
was a
yeah,
supporter of Kristen. Yeah, because she wanted to
yeah,
have
and
the
I
baby. Yeah.
exactly, and I just feel like and he wasn't invited to their trip away. Where did they go?
Yeah.
To a mountain somewhere?
Big Bear, I think. Yeah.
That's right. And then he posted something like on my way to Big
His
Bear or something,
location.
like hilarious. Yes, like so funny. Um, but like there's enough juice in all of those relationships. And there are so many of them. There are like 8 main cast members. And there's enough for us to follow that we don't need the fake shit from VPR bleeding into it.
Yeah, I'm so curious how that really is handled in all actuality. And we'll see. April
Yeah.
15th, the first episode. And, I will say Lala and Sheena are not in the first episode, if that helps at all.
Have you had a little sneak preview, Ryan
I've
Bailey?
seen it. I really like it. I think it's a great start to the season. And I think it's something that I'm really excited to see where we go from that first episode.
Okay, so I know you can't say anything about it, but
Yeah.
on a scale of like first episodes, like Atlanta, I think came swinging out of the gates. That was like a bang. I thought that was really good. And then, we've had some other like any episode of Roni. Where would you say it's sitting?
I mean, I would say it was like an. I would say it's like an 8. I would say it's like up there.
Ooh.
I mean, well, it's an 8, and yeah, like I really enjoyed it. I've watched it twice so far, and I've enjoyed it. So yeah, I thought it was it's hard though because the start of a season, it's like good, but and I think also it's high up there for me because I'm like, oh, I can't wait for this. I can't wait to see the second episode, which is really
Okay.
good. But I'm
If
not
it
saying
leaves
there's
you
not.
feeling like that, yeah.
But there's not. I mean, I'm trying to. I don't want to say it, but anyways, yeah. I think it's really good. I'm excited to see people see it, and
Yeah.
you've got Dodie and Jack. I mean, like you got those people that you're like, oh yeah, it's like so natural in some ways.
Yeah, it's like going home. We know
Yeah.
these people, and I think that's what we're excited to get back to. When the Valley finished, even like people we didn't know before, like the Lallies, we were fully invested in them by
Oh,
the
that
end.
to me, I just cut myself off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
They are. I think they are going to be the breakout. They're not a couple anymore, but
Yeah.
they were already amazing in the first episode. That to me
Amazing.
is like
Yeah.
the couple that used to be a couple ones to watch. Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
I feel like that we got that authenticity from the first season. We were feeling like, oh my god, I'm invested in this marriage that we've only known about for 3 weeks, falling apart. Like I want to
yeah.
know where's it going to go, what's going to happen, is she going to fall back in love with him, is the ayahuasca going to work, like whatever it was. So
Um,
yeah,
Jana, this has been amazing. I've blew past the hour, but I wanted to remind people your book Plot Twist: A Personal Guide to Surviving Life's Unexpected Curveballs. We talked about this more the first episode she was on. So if you liked her, and I think you obviously will like her, go check out that episode if you haven't. But she also has a podcast, The Curious Life, where she talks about Bravo. She talks about other reality shows. She does Married at First Sight. I don't cover that at all on this show. But what else? How can we support you?
oh, well, that would be amazing. You can find me on Instagram. It's Jana.Firestone. It's Jana with a J, just to be annoying. And yeah, the podcast, look, the part of the reason I'm not prioritizing Beverly Hills is because I'm having to give up half my life to Married at First Sight. At the moment, it's just hours and hours and hours of TV a week. So we're doing
Married at First Sight is multiple hours a week.
oh my God, Ryan, it's 4 nights a week. And
Oh,
it's
it's like
like
Love
an
Island.
and it's like an hour and a half each episode. It's insane.
Oh
It's
my god,
insane.
I didn't
Yeah.
realize Married at First Sight was on more than once a week.
Yeah. And I was like, I'll just
God.
like, check in. And then of course I was hooked. And now I'm doing a weekly podcast with Evie Jones, who other Australians will know. So,
Awesome.
yeah. And then I get to interview cool people like you and Kate Casey and, all my and I've got Chef Zarina. I've just done an interview with
Oh,
her from Below Deck.
below that, yeah,
And that's
amazing.
coming up. It's ready to go. She's amazing. And she talks a lot about her ADHD from her childhood to now and how she manages it. It's not all just below deck stuff. In fact, we only just touched on it a little bit, and it's largely about her really challenging kind of upbringing and her, wanting to find love, and she's really vulnerable and amazing.
Well, we'll definitely all have to check that out. Below Deck, I mean, Down Under, it gets one of the highest rated shows on Bravo, and
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's really interesting to point out because sometimes we don't talk about Below Deck as much as we talk about the other shows, yet
Yeah.
more people watch Below Deck than they do the other shows. So I found that
Yes.
really interesting. Also, guys, go check out our podcast. Make sure to rate it 5 stars when you do as well. So that stuff really helps
Oh, thanks,
visibility wise
Ryan.
with the algorithm that we all know and
Yes.
love. So, okay, so until next time, there will be a next time. I will talk to you very soon, I'm sure.
Can't wait. Thanks so much for
Bye.
having me, Ryan. Bye.